Evan Gerstel from sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I have one of my favorites, Joe Polizzi, of an author, podcaster, live streamer, content entrepreneur, thought leader, speaker. What else do I call you, Joe?
I think that's enough. I think that's
Uh, uh,
as far as we want to go. It means I have too many projects I'm working on right now. That's what it
you have
means.
so many projects, and for those who don't know of the Tilt, this community, this newsletter, this yeah, amazing destination, check it out. But Joe, I consider you one of the OGs of content marketing. Um, is it the case that you're the first one to use that term, or do I have that wrong?
Uh, so the term was first used in the mid '90s, but it was not used in the way that we use talk about it today. I started kicking it around in 2001, and then of course when we came out as Content Marketing Institute, and still nobody was using the term. I guess we're credited with popularizing the term, but and it's funny, it just kind of fell into that because I came from custom publishing. That was the background. So basically, we did content projects for the Microsofts and the Autodesks of the world. It was content for hire, and most of it was print publications when I first started. But as I was selling this idea of content marketing, and I'm talking to chief marketing officers, they didn't want anything to do with custom publishing. That doesn't concern me. I'm a marketer. So I actually started throwing this content marketing phrase by them, and they would sort of sit up in their chairs and they would sort of pay more attention than they would before. And I said, now there's something, right? So if you're a marketer, search marketing, direct marketing, social media marketing, content marketing. A lot of people didn't like it, but I think that was one of the reasons why it took off. And we had a lot of wonderful thought leaders get behind it. And then by 2011, it really took off.
Indeed, you may not know this, but you're actually my mentor. Not because I've hired you as a coach or we've ever even met in person, but just because I feel such a connection to this community and your mission. And just to give you a little anecdote, I had a hard time explaining what I've been doing the last 8 years with my professional life until I learned something called a content entrepreneur. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what I do. Now I have a job title. I can tell people what I do. So explain the world of content creators from your perspective, but specifically,
Sure.
folks like myself who are content entrepreneurs.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I'm humbled by that. It's funny. So I've spent almost 20 years in the content marketing industry, and I was working with very big brands and big companies. But I myself was a content entrepreneur. So I'm trying to create my own little media company, and that's the whole idea of it. But as I really started to get involved and went down the rabbit hole of Web3 in 2000 and started to talk to more individuals about this thing, they were throwing out content creator everywhere. I'm a content creator, you're a content creator. And I really didn't like just that term because my mom's a content creator. I know my neighbor over here that's on Facebook is creating content right now. We're all content creators. And so I felt we needed something to differentiate what you and I do. And we're first and foremost business owners. We are
Mhm.
entrepreneurs. How do we go to market with our business? It's content first. We are trying to build an audience. And once we build an audience around a certain niche, then we're going to go ahead and launch all kinds of products and services to monetize that audience. That's what I feel a content entrepreneur is. And that's why we're doing all the things that we're doing at the Tilt, because first and foremost, we have to realize that this is running a business. Now, nothing against all people creating content out there for whatever reasons. You can be a hobbyist. You want to do it as a side hustle. You want to do it because you want to see your kids on Facebook. I don't care. That's all good. But when I say content entrepreneur, it means I have a purpose. I'm actually doing this as some kind of profitable entity, either now or down the road. And that's important, that differentiation. And it seems like kind of like what you're saying, it's resonated with a lot of people. So I'm all in on it, kind of like I was all in on the term with content marketing back in 2007. The same thing is back, here in 2023. I'm all in on this term content entrepreneur.
Indeed. And, tell us about your community versus your audience. I mean, I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile's background. You've got 250,000 followers on LinkedIn. I bet you really don't know who those people are, but you have a really tight knit community at the Tilt. So explain that, how you built that.
So It's interesting because I sort of straddle two different communities. I've been a part of the content marketing community forever, and I will continue to do so. And then I guess, content entrepreneurs will be interested in this. So I have this audience over here, and I'm actually trying to flip the script a little bit, move over, and I'm talking to people like myself, more content creators, content entrepreneurs, if you will. And so I've got all these people. I'm like, okay, well, I've got this audience that I built through, Twitter and LinkedIn and some of my own personal email. And I'm like, okay, if we think about all these people that I reached, so I reached, let's say, total 500,000 people, who are the ones that I really want to be part of this community? And that's why we created the email newsletter, The Tilt, to do that. So I talk to a lot of different people in a lot of different ways, mostly through LinkedIn today. And that sort of funnels down and they get hopefully subscribed to the newsletter. And then from there, we've got even more niche communities, if you will, because I think we have 20 or 21,000 people subscribed to the Tilt right now. But it goes down to our super fans of just 70 people in our private community for Creator Economy Expo, that we have a thing called an NFT project called Never Ending Tickets. And that's a very tight knit community. So that's what I would consider our super fans. So the Tilt, great community. We've got a Discord of the 20,000. We've got about 1,500 of those people that are on the Discord. And then that goes down even further to these super fans that we work with each other. We try to do anything and everything for each other. So it's just interesting how you break those down. So if you think about, I've got all these people out here, how do you make a business out of that? Ultimately, I believe that email is the way to do that or the best way, in my opinion, for content entrepreneurs, because you're not then, you don't have to worry about the whole rented land thing and LinkedIn changing the rules or Twitter changing the rules or Elon doing whatever he wants to do today. At the end of the day, we have our future customer database. That's our email database that we can monetize in many different ways.
And you were so instructional in advocating, even a couple of years ago, to me, the importance of getting off of social, getting your audience, your community off of social onto your own properties, your email list, your blog, your podcast. Explain what that is, because we're all obsessed with social, as I'm first to admit, but that's not sufficient. And it's kind of dangerous to be locked into one or more platforms, right?
It's funny. I think the reason why I ultimately started the Tilt, I had a conversation with a business owner who was trying to do this, and they had everything was on Instagram, which is fine. I mean, but it's a horrible business model. So they had, I think it was something like 70,000 subscribers or followers on Instagram and doing really well and talking about how they were going to build the business. And I just asked the question, what if you got blocked from Instagram? Like, this was a question they never considered. I said,
Or
what if
hacked,
they,
which is even more
yeah,
possible. Yeah.
exactly. And then I said, well, what if they change the rules? And you can Instagram, it could be YouTube, it could be Twitter, any platform, TikTok, any platform that you're thinking about. Say, okay, so you're building your business on top of somebody else's business. That's very, very scary for me. So I've been since 2015. That was the first version of Content Inc. I put in a visual called the subscriber hierarchy, and we've updated it since then. But basically, email and membership is at the top of that subscriber hierarchy, and then you've got print magazines, and you've got podcast subscribers, and then basically everything else under it is some version of social media, somebody else's company that you're being allowed to use for free that you have no rights on. And I'm not saying you shouldn't use it. Like, you and I, we're both big users of Twitter, and I mean, we use a lot of different tools that make sense for our business, but we can't rely on them. So that's where, if you look at that top of the hierarchy, whether that's a Web3 project, ultimately, if we get more sophisticated down the road, even it's working for us, but it's a little bit tougher for a lot of people. I'd say email is probably the best place to go right now, because if I have my email list with some company, I can always port that off. That data is mine. And I can move that opt-in data to something else, even if your MailChimp or your ConvertKit or your Constant Contact says, I don't want to deal with you anymore. So that's so incredibly important. And that's for any business. That just happens to be for our content entrepreneur business, where that's the thing that we don't rely on. It's almost like saying, if you own, so instead of owning a house, you rent a house, and then you have this rented house that somebody else has owned, and you fix it all up, and you put in new furniture, and you put in new siding and new flooring and a new kitchen, and you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on that. And then the landlord comes over and says, you're out. I'm going to rent this to someone else. And you're like, I did all this work. I created
Right.
this whole thing. Well, that's what a lot of people are doing in social media. And that's the absolute reason why I got back into this game with the tilt, because I saw too many content creators doing exactly that and not thinking business first. How do I set this up so I have an asset at the end of the day? And that's what content entrepreneurs do.
I love it. And tell us about the Content Entrepreneur Expo that's coming up. Where is it? When is it? Why should someone attend? You know,
So
what's the? I'm looking to attend, hopefully as well. So what's the pitch there?
yeah, so CEX May 1st to 3rd in Cleveland, Ohio. This will be our second year. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, so I'm happy to bring the event
Bring
home.
them
We were
in.
in
Yeah.
Yeah, we were in Phoenix last year. Um, we created that event because, first of all, a lot of content creation events out there. There's VidCon out there that's doing great. You've got a lot of influencer events out there, but I didn't see any for content entrepreneurs. I didn't see any content first folks that are really thinking about how do I grow this business. There's nothing out there for that. And I said, well, I felt like we had to do that. And of course, I come from the event business, been doing it for a long time. I'm like, okay, let's see if we can make an event here. So we're planning on 400 or 500 people coming to Cleveland,
Wow.
Ohio. We've got some amazing keynotes this year, all content creators breaking down their businesses, saying this is how we failed, this is how we've succeeded. We've got podcasting track, Web3 track, revenue track, business operations track. So I'm trying to get people to come and say, okay, we're creating content all the time as content
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, but you've got to take a second and say, okay, am I making the best moves? Let's invest in my own training. But maybe more importantly, and this is what we saw last year, we had so many people go to CEX last year, and they got together and they partnered on projects for the last
Mm.
year. And that's what I love to see. A lot of people don't realize the number one reason people go to events like CEX is to network and meet other people and to find partners. And that's what I love, where you can find another content entrepreneur and say, hey, can we help each other? Can we partner on a program? Let's do something together. And that's what I'm excited about seeing. And a lot of people are coming back together. Hey, let's get together again. I haven't seen you in a year. And so I'm pretty excited about everyone getting together again.
That's fantastic. What do you think the secret is to an event in this new normal post-COVID world? Are you going to do things differently than you might have done pre-COVID? People getting together is small the new big in terms of just the right mix of people? Do you have hybrid as well as in person? Like what's your thoughts there?
Um, I think that, well, in this marketplace, you have a lot of fan events. This, like ours,
Mm,
isn't a fan event. Like if you go to a
right.
VidCon, there's a lot of people that are there to see the creators
Oh,
because
really?
they are the audience. This is not. These are all operators coming to our event. I'm very bullish on almost all sized events.
Mm,
If I mean, I see that we're human beings. Ultimately, social interaction is really important. And now that we can meet so many more people online, ultimately, to consummate that relationship, if you will, you want to meet in person and get together and say, hey, I'm glad to meet you. I want to shake your hand. How can we help each other? And that takes the relationship to the next level. And so I think smaller events like ours, the 400, 500, are going to be fairly successful. And then I still think you're going to have these huge events. Now, personally, I like the events where ultimately, if I want to, I can meet and see everyone that's
wow.
there.
Okay.
I can, and that's what's different about our event as well is, so let's say Jesse Cole. Jesse Cole's our closing keynote. Jesse's the founder of the Savannah Bananas. He's going to talk about his fans first
Oh,
mentality,
he's
how he
fantastic.
built, yeah,
Yeah.
how he built this whole thing. What's great is you go to an event like a VidCon or some other, CES type summit, and you won't get to meet any of those people or talk to them. Well, what's great is after Jesse speaks, you could talk to him if you want to. You could talk to Jay Bear, you could talk to Ann Hanley, you could talk to Jay Klaus, you could talk to any of these speakers because they're going to be there the whole time. It's not like an in and out thing. So even though, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I want to make money. The bigger events is where you make more money. But what
Right.
I like as an attendee, it's the smaller events where I can network and meet all the people.
That's so great. Now you've worked, of course, in your career in the consumer side and the business side, B2B, B2C, B2B to C. I work exclusively in B2B, and we're pretty boring. We're a little different. We're a little stodgy. And any tips or tricks or advice to folks like myself who are on the B2B side when it comes to content creation, collaboration, messaging. It's we're not known for things like live streams. This is a little novel, even though every 17-year-old is doing it these days.
Mhm. Well, that's the opportunity too. I guess so. First of all, I grew up in B2B, and B2B
Mhm.
publishing was my thing, and I think it's the sexiest industry to be in. And the
Oh,
reason why I like it from a business model standpoint, I mean, Content Marketing Institute, when I launched that business in 2007, that was a purely B2B uh, business model, and I like that because I don't need millions of people subscribing. You can like we got to 10,000 subscribers, and we knew we had a business.
mm,
I've done some B2B programs where we would create content packages that would go out to just 100 people. You know, like, well, how is that possible? Because those 100 people had multi-million dollar spending power. And that's what I love about B2B. So, I mean, yeah, you might like, oh, I want to get in photography or I want to get into entertainment, and that's fine, but you need a lot more people in order to make the business model run. In B2B, you don't. So, I mean, my advice to anyone in B2B is double down on one or two specific things instead of being mediocre at five or six or seven. Like Content Marketing Institute did some research a while back. The average company on the B2B side sends content out 13 to 16 different ways. Twitter, LinkedIn, and webinars, and research programs, and events, and everything, right? So 13 of those different things. So they create a lot of content and it's mediocre at best. So the recommendation is always like, what's one or two things that you can do better than anyone else? And for the business niche, I would really get that down to a small niche that you can answer the question. And if you ask your question, can you be the leading informational expert in that niche? That's what I want to be. Like if I do the work, if I send the email every week for the next, year, if I do a LinkedIn update every day and comment on 5 to 10 different people's posts every day, will that work for me? And you say yes, that will. You will be the leading expert. That's what I like to see, and you can do that in B2B. So I think that's the opportunity. When I talk to a lot of young content entrepreneurs, I was like, boy, the buying power is always on the B2B side. So if you can find a business niche, that's always better than on the consumer niche where you need a lot more numbers.
I love it. Well, the riches are in the niches, as someone once
That's
said. You
right.
probably said that. I probably stole that from you. But I actually enjoy stealing your content, your messaging. I think you actually encouraged it in a couple of videos, like use this to describe what you do. This is the way to message to your marketplace and the customers. And I definitely took that advice. Everyone subscribe to the Tilt. It will not go to your junk folder. It's a one of those high quality newsletters, and yeah, I look forward to seeing and hearing more. So thanks so much for joining and sharing your vision and mission. It's been good to catch up. Just as a side note, we're doing this on a 5G network on a phone on StreamYard. It seemed to have worked
You
from
did a
the
great.
audience
Yeah, I
side.
think you passed with flying colors. You did, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person at
All
CX
right,
in a couple months. That'd be
fantastic.
great.
Thanks so much, Joe.
Thanks,
Take care.
Evan.